Welcome back to the Quiet Mind Astrology Podcast. My name is Jeremy Devins, and today we'll talk about the Lunar Eclipse happening in Ashwini Nakshatra tomorrow from when I'm recording this on the Friday forecast. That'll be October 28th, 2023, and this is the last eclipse that will be in Aries until 2030. So very significant event happening here, and a lot of people going through major changes and transformations right now. I've talked to over the last week, including me moving to a new place here in Mexico and really enjoying my new place. But I definitely had some challenges with that. I mentioned last week, and lots of little moments of resistance coming up. And as I talk about here on the podcast all the time, what this is all about is the phrase I use a lot called life alignment. I do the life alignment readings. It's about finding what is true and resonant for you and what feels in alignment for you. And no one else can really tell you what that is. It's like this intuition, this feeling, and you do things like yoga and meditation, and it becomes clearer what that is and harder to do things that take you out of alignment. And my hope with this podcast is that it helps you find your unique alignment, knowing the energies and the weather report, the things that are happening externally and how they affect you internally and how you can best work with them. So we'll look at all of the rising and moon signs. So you want to know your birth chart, your rising and your moon sign in Vedic astrology only. This does not apply to Western astrology, very different system. And this is exactly where the stars were when you were born. So it's much more true to astronomy rather than the patterns of where they were 2,000 years ago in Western astrology. So if you don't have your free birth chart, go to quietmindastrology.com, get the free birth chart, and sign up for the free Friday forecast to your inbox every week, where I send you longer write-ups on everything I talk about here on the podcast. If you prefer to have the written version, you can see that written out and reference that throughout the week and month ahead. And today is just about the eclipse. Tomorrow I'll do the monthly forecast for November, sending that out early so you got time to plan for November. Lots of big stuff happening next month as well. And we are in the last third of the eclipse season right now. And the eclipses are the big turning points of the year. Every 6 months this happens when the sun and moon transit up with Rahu and Ketu, the north and south node of the moon. And this indicates a big portal, a big turning point in our lives to go through a doorway into a new phase of life. And where that exactly is and what that means depends on where it is in your birth chart, which I'll talk about today. So first of all, what are the general interpretations of this lunar eclipse, this full moon in Ashwini? Well, as you can see if you're watching the video on YouTube, we have this big stellium in Libra I talked about last week. Ketu, Sun, Mercury, and Mars are all there. Disregard the ascendant. This is just a random ascendant on the chart. It's not true for everybody. But 4 grahas in Libra, bringing this time to rebalance and reevaluate what is in alignment for us and to find your unique life alignment, especially being in Swati. There is an energy like Swati. You can think of the word sway, like a blade of grass swaying in the wind. There are roots to it, but there's also this adaptability to it. And right now there is this potential to adapt to a lot of different situations and take in a lot of different perspectives and to find what is best for you and what is most balanced for you. And that can be a little uncertain right now, especially through the eclipse season. This can bring a sense of uncertainty and needing some time to kind of figure out exactly what direction you want to go. And on the actual days of the eclipse, like tomorrow, Saturday, it's not a good day to do anything important. So if you can clear your calendar on the day of the eclipse, that's ideal, and just kind of chill out, do things for pleasure, for fun, for enjoyment. And then around the eclipse is when you are making these big decisions. Like right now I'm making a bunch of travel decisions, be doing some travel in November, December, and doing that around the eclipse, but not on the day of the eclipse. Not booking the flights, not booking the Airbnbs or whatever. You don't want to do that on the day of the eclipse because usually there's going to be some sense of like the eclipse where something is overshadowed, something is not entirely clear on that day. And historically throughout history, it's just a time to not make important decisions, and we can't always see as clearly on that day Even back in the Vedas, it says stuff like this over 3,000 years ago. So what can you do? Well, things for pleasure and enjoyment. Relaxing, getting a massage, going for a walk, doing yoga, meditating, reading a book. Just for enjoyment, playing games, hanging out with friends. Things for fun and pleasure and enjoyment rather than for any important life-altering decisions on that day if possible. That said, you probably are making some life-altering decisions in this 6-week period, which began about 4 weeks prior to this episode on October 27th, and continues about 2 more weeks until 11/11, which is kind of nice. Little numerology there. 11/11 is considered a portal and a gateway, so that is the ending of this portal and into the next phase of the next 6 months. And you can reflect back on what happened to you 6 months ago, back at the end of April and early May, and how has your life changed since then. And for me, as an example, just real briefly, it was my decision to move to Mexico and spend some time here in nature and live a more simple life, more rural life, still able to have the internet thanks to Starlink and be online here, but I am living a much simpler, quieter life. Haven't bought anything on Amazon in like 7 months, which is a record for me, for sure. I love Amazon and the convenience of that, and the convenience of America is amazing, but don't have those things here now, and it's a nice sort of grounding effect, and that's been part of my journey over the past 6 months, of moving to Mexico 6 months ago and the last eclipse, and then now staying here another 6 months. And then after that, I'll probably go on somewhere else in the summer. So that's part of my journey, and there's a lot wrapped up in all that, but I'll just say that for now. But let's talk about what it means generally for everybody. So again, the lunar eclipse is in Ashwini. Ashwini is the healing energy, symbolized by a horse's head, representing this swift, quick-moving energy to get stuff done, to initiate. It is the first of the 27 nakshatras, and people who have Ashwini strong in their birth chart are often great at initiating things, great leaders, innovators, great at starting things, and often drawn to paths of health and healing and wellness like yoga and Ayurveda and things like this. And when the eclipse is happening here, the lunar eclipse, the full moon, is a time to reflect on what you want in those areas of your life. It's an opportunity for new beginnings and fresh starts in general. And there can be significant healing that happens around this time. So if there are healers or body workers or energy workers that you like to go to, or you're interested in going to, or something you need to address health-wise, this is a very powerful window of opportunity to do that. And it may begin a new journey over the next 6 months where you go on a deeper healing journey. There can be a surge of energy and enthusiasm at this time where you feel inspired and invigorated to do something new. And again, it's not on the actual day of the 28th, but around this time you may feel inspiration to begin a new path in some way. Again, where exactly, we'll talk about that in a little bit, of what house it's in for you. So the house really determines how this expresses for you. And there's a potential for quick and decisive action to get stuff done. There's a desire for adventure and exploration. And there's an increased sense of self-confidence and assertiveness at this time, so you have the courage to do something new. Now, always, just like every atom in your body has a proton, electron, and neutron, as below, so above, every transit of the planets in the universe and our solar system has the potential of positive, negative, or neutral expression. And if you're going towards the negative expression of something, you can look to the positive side of the things I just mentioned and try to make more decisions in that direction. And if you notice yourself kind of slipping into the negative expression, just focus on the positive outcomes of what you want to create. It's so much, a lot of this is the intention. Just like Google is this powerful tool that it's all about what you want to look for. You have to decide what you're searching for to make it useful. Same thing with any transit, same thing with astrology. It's all comes back to like, what do you want? What do you want to create in your life, and what do you desire? And if you're not entirely sure on that, that's where practices to get back in alignment can be so helpful. Things like meditation, yoga, spiritual practices, mantra, this all can help you get back to clarity. And if you don't know yet, then don't decide. And until you are clear and do feel that alignment, just wait, and you don't need to make decisions or force it or try to go along with something because you think that's what you should want or what other people say. But allow it to arise naturally, and then you'll be naturally guided towards what you need to do. And if you're in the in-between phase, it's okay. Just be gentle on yourself, be kind, compassionate, and just like the caterpillar turns into the butterfly, people forget about the goo phase in between there, where the caterpillar is completely just a pile of goo in the cocoon, and then it comes out as the butterfly later. Right? So you may be in the caterpillar phase, the butterfly phase, or the goo phase right now, and they're all part of the process. It's all okay, and we all go through these cycles throughout life. So once you do have that clarity of desire, though, then it becomes a lot easier to work with these transits and to focus on what you do want and move towards that. But if you're slipping towards the negative side, focus on those practices of getting back to alignment. So the negative side of this could be a tendency towards impatience and impulsiveness, potential for reckless behavior or hasty decisions, challenges in dealing with sudden changes. There can be risk of conflicts or confrontations. It's an assertive, aggressive energy at times. Think of like a horse, how they can become very powerful and aggressive. And there's a need for patience and restraint to avoid overreacting. Right? So the symbol of the horse here with Ashwini is very helpful to see a lot of this. There can be impatience, there can be impulsiveness, but a horse, when it is trained well, it can be very graceful, powerful, directed, focused, driven, and work together really well and move in new directions and lead and direct. But if it's untrained and ungrounded and unfocused, it can be destructive and violent. There is that possibility with the horse, with Ashwini. And overall, this is a positive transit and a positive potential energy. And we'll look at now how to interpret this for your rising and moon sign. So if you're watching the video, I'm going to move here across the sky to show the different ascendants from Aries to Pisces. And you want to listen to both your rising and moon sign. If you don't know these, go to quietmindastrology.com, get your free birth chart, look where the number 1 is. That's where Aries is right now, and this eclipse in Ashwini will be. So I'll actually move the date forward here on the calendar, on the video. So you see the moon is in the 1st house, sun is in the 7th house, moon is in Aries, sun is in Libra. That creates the full moon, and they're conjunct with Rahu and Ketu. That creates the eclipse. So we'll look at that for each rising and moon sign for you. You want to listen to each of those. So starting with Aries ascendant, this is affecting your 1st house here in this first square at the top. And this is a period for self-discovery and personal growth in your identity. This can be a huge identity shift for you, new self-realizations, potential for making positive changes for your self-image and self-esteem. It's favorable for setting new intentions and starting afresh in life. I know a lot of Aries ascendant people and moons who are making huge life changes right now, moving to new towns and getting a new car and starting new phases of school and education. Very powerful new beginnings. Whenever you have these transits over the 1st house especially, they are big identity shifting times. On the negative side, if unfavorable, you could be at risk of impulsive actions or confrontations with others, a little hot-headed. There can be a tendency to confront unresolved personal issues and fears in a harmful way, but generally addressing those things is very positive. There's a potential for conflicts in personal relationships, and always with these 1st house transits, there's a potential for identity crisis and who am I, what am I doing, why am I here? That is part of that transit that everyone goes through in different ways at different times, especially with everything else happening right now. Who are you? What do you want in relationships? What is the balance of self and other? These are all big questions that you may be going through right now. Totally normal. And it's important to have a sense of compassion and kindness for yourself, and maybe explore some healing modalities around relationships, like relationship counseling or therapy, or other modalities that would partner practices, things like this, to address self and other and boundaries and your needs. Next, we'll look at the Taurus ascendant or moon sign. As you see, this eclipse is happening over your 12th house. Now, this brings a focus on self-reflection and spiritual growth, and maybe unearthing some hidden talents and hidden interests and things that are more on the spiritual, esoteric, intuitive side of yourself. Some gifts or intuition may come out at this time. There's opportunities for resolving inner conflicts and doing some deep emotional healing. This is favorable for introspection and addressing unresolved issues from the past. And there may be some sort of necessary loss at this time that is for your personal growth, something to let go, potentially a sense of identity as well, being Aries here. And this can be a little ungrounding and a little uncertain for you, but it can be tremendously healing. So especially important for you as the Taurus rising and or moon to do some sort of spiritual practices during this time, because the 12th house is the most spiritual house. There's a risk of feeling overwhelmed by anxieties or fears at this time, and there's a tendency to confront unresolved subconscious issues that they just need to be addressed, and it could be a little uncertain and ungrounding. There's a potential for emotional turmoil and a need for solitude and self-care. So if you're able to take a little time away for yourself on the eclipse day or around the eclipse, time in nature, time in meditation, this will be tremendously beneficial for you to get clarity and to find your unique alignment. And 12th house represents solitude, time alone, and meditation and things like this. So through doing that, you'll find a stronger sense of identity, but there may be some sense of loss of identity through this process, and ultimately a loss of material things to gain spiritual knowledge, inspiration, growth, and maturity. For Gemini rising and moon, this is the eclipse that's happening over your 11th house. And there's an opportunity here to focus on your friendships and social circles and have this sort of new phase of life around your friendships and connections. Now, I'll just share a personal example as Gemini rising or Gemini moon myself, as I am in Mexico, and when I first got here, didn't know anybody. Now I know a lot of people, and it's part of my having Rahu in the 11th, as all Geminis have had for the last year and a half. And now I have two friends who I know very well moving here to stay here in this area for the next several months. So that's a big part of it for me, of this new phase and this new eclipse time. One of them will actually be arriving in just like 5 days. So right after this happens, I'm totally, for myself, as a Gemini moon, beginning this new phase of friendship and more social connection in my life. And you may be as well in some element. Maybe you're going to more social events, more social connections in your life. It's an opportunity for resolving conflicts with your friends and groups and creating a more connected energy there. It's favorable for redefining your social networks and your aspirations and your goals and how you want to be seen and recognized in the world, and reaching new levels of fame and success and wealth, because 11th house is what you gain from your career, which includes recognition and acknowledgement and accolades and rewards and wealth and things like this. But as always, like in the Bhagavad Gita, we do things for the joy of doing them. We do the work for the love of the work and the Dharma, not for the fruits. And we trust that the fruits will follow, but we don't focus on the fruits of the efforts. There's a risk of misunderstandings or conflicts with friends and groups at this time, and this balance of individuation within the group of Aries, the sense of self in the 11th house of social groups. So there's always this work to balance of who you are within the group and finding your individuality within the group setting. There's a tendency to confront social issues and power struggles, and you may be drawn to being involved with social justice issues or acknowledging power struggles within groups. There's a potential for emotional upheaval in social relationships, and some big stuff may come up, like some big issues to address around relationships at this time, and they are there for healing. Being in Ashwini with this eclipse, it's an opportunity for healing those relationships. For Cancer, Ascendant, and Moon, this eclipse is happening over your 10th house of career, one of the Kendra houses, the four major houses in the chart. So this is a big turning point in your career, and you may have this new sense of identity in your work. This is a time to focus on your career, public image, and reputation over the 6 months of this now new section of your life after the eclipse. And there's an opportunity for resolving career conflicts and having significant personal and professional growth. There's a favorable time for setting new career goals and intentions. And like I mentioned earlier, focusing on what you want in your work, because there's huge potential here. There's a risk of career conflicts or workplace challenges, some things to navigate and balance needs of self and other in the work dynamics. You might confront unresolved career issues and some self-doubt about your career and find a new level of confidence through that. But you may have to work through some trials of self-doubt, of feeling like you really do believe in yourself and have this sense of faith and trust in your path. There's potential for changes or disruptions in your personal life and your public standing. The Aries energy here, there's a need to really find your sense and your unique way of doing things in your work and your individuality in that. And there may be some necessary power struggles or renegotiation or adjustments of how you relate to others in that process. But overall, this is quite a positive transit and can lead to huge career growth and lots of new opportunities. And really like this new level of confidence in what you're doing in your work, in your purpose. For Leo ascendants and moons, this eclipse brings an enhanced focus on higher education, being in the 9th house here, as you see all those planets in the bottom right 9th house. There's opportunity to go into learning new skills, and maybe you want to go back to school or get a higher degree or something like this, or explore spirituality or religion, because these are also 9th house matters, and go deeper into your philosophical studies and your personal beliefs. Also a favorable time for travel. You may find yourself more drawn to travel over the next 6 months. There's potential for personal growth and philosophical exploration. You may encounter very powerful, helpful teachers. It's favorable for setting new personal and educational goals and clarifying what you really want in your educational path. What do you want to learn? Where do you want to grow next? And where can you bring more spiritual growth into your life? There's a risk of identity conflicts and self-doubt in your beliefs, and you may have some level of spiritual or philosophical or ethical crisis. And I mean that in the best way, of needing to reevaluate what you really value. And there's a tendency to confront unresolved issues related to higher knowledge. Maybe there's some unfinished school you dropped out, or career or educational path that you didn't finish, or a spiritual path that you want to go deeper in. This is the time to go back to that. Potential for conflicts in education or travel plans. And there can be some impulsivity in this that leads to needing to clean some things up later. But overall, it is quite positive transit and energy here, and potential for going into this new phase of life where you have a lot of huge spiritual insights about yourself. For Virgo rising and moon, this eclipse is happening over your 8th house. As you see in the bottom right, all these planets piled up here, including the moon and Rahu. This is a time to focus on your shared resources, and that includes finances and assets with in-laws or spouse or partners. There's an opportunity for huge transformation at this time. You can do a lot of really deep healing kind of work here. The 8th house is the house of transformation, astrology, yoga, personal growth. So you may find yourself encountering really powerful personal growth paths and opportunities for growth. This is a favorable time for introspection and deepening emotional connections for Virgo risings and moons in the 8th house here being affected. So you may be drawn to more introspective practices and meditation, and you want to go deeper into the emotional connections in your life and have more emotional vulnerability and openness. Your 8th house also represents vulnerability. There's a risk of financial disputes and issues related to shared resources here and things to navigate there. There's a tendency to confront unresolved issues related to intimacy and trust. This also is the house of affairs and infidelity, so you may have some issues like this come up around relationships, trust and commitment, and what you want in the relationship, your agreements, your boundaries, and your needs. There's a potential for emotional turmoil and self-reflection. This can be a quite intense house. It is a Marika house, a house that can represent hardships and challenges, but those ultimately do lead to some of the greatest growth and lessons in life. So there is, in a sense, the most potential in the 8th house with this eclipse, maybe of any other placement. The 8th house always brings a huge potential for personal growth, but often through going down into the depths of the challenges. And sometimes in the spiritual path, people avoid going down. They tend to aspire towards rising above, raising your frequency, raising your vibration. Love and light, that's the highest frequency. You want to go up. But that's not always how the universe works. There's expansion and contraction. There's ups and downs. And if we try to just go up all the time, we get burned out. And it just doesn't actually work. It's not how the universe works. There are seasons. There is expansion and contraction. There are storms. There are days and nights, darkness and light. So the 8th house invites us to go down into the darkness, into the deeper stuff. Not in the sense of causing harm or negativity or destruction or anything like that, but there may be a necessary emotional release or vulnerability or loss or deeper conversation or deeper issue to address that requires going down into the deeper conversations, into the roots rather than up into the fruits. And then eventually we do have the fruits, and we do have the up, and we do have the day following the night. But we need both in the 8th house and the 12th house in particular, for Taurus, rising and moon too. That is part of the lesson of these transits, is to invite us to go down, to contract, to go within, to look into these darker, deeper parts of ourselves. And that will ultimately lead to a lot of growth and the up and the expansion and all this. But we do both with the sense of exploration and curiosity, and that they're both part of life. They're both equally important. Of course, we don't want to get stuck in the negativity or the harm or depression or anything like this. But sometimes we do, and that is part of life. And we get to navigate that and find new skills to navigate that more skillfully. Now, Libra ascendant and moon, this eclipse is happening over your 7th house. Focus on personal relationships and partnerships, opportunities for resolving relationship conflicts, favorable for redefining your relationship goals and partnerships, including business partnerships, family, friends, business contracts, marriage, spouse, all these kind of things. This is a time to reevaluate those things, and especially for you with the stellium in your 1st house happening right now, to really reevaluate what you want in yourself, in relationships, with others. There's a risk of misunderstandings and conflicts with others at this time. There's a tendency to confront relationship issues and power struggles, and a potential for emotional upheaval in personal and professional partnerships. In some ways, it's a very simple transit. It's like just work through the relationship stuff, just talk about it, just be open, be honest, be authentic, be willing to hear the other person, to renegotiate, to reevaluate things if necessary. But it's a big focus on relationships, which comes very naturally to the Libra ascendant and moons. So it's a time to look at what is true, what is in alignment now in relationships, and rebalance that. Also to do with finances and marketplace stuff. The 7th house also represents the marketplace, a commonly overlooked aspect of this, which may involve any sort of buying, selling, and trading. If you have a business or are involved in some element of sales, then this is an important time to reevaluate how you're spending your money and what is important, what you want to focus on buying, selling, and trading. And this is potentially a hugely healing time for relationships. So go into those issues, address those things, have those conversations, and this can be very healing for yourself and for the relationships in your life. And you may need to reevaluate some boundaries and personal needs here and realign in those ways. For the Scorpio ascendant and moon, we see the eclipse is happening in your 6th house. This brings a focus on work, health, and your daily routines, and a time to maybe reassess those and reevaluate those and begin a new phase of life with your daily activities. There's opportunity for resolving work-related conflicts. It's favorable for reviewing your health habits in your daily life and maybe starting a new health routine. You may be drawn to a new exercise program or yoga routine or dinacharya, your daily routine, and Ayurvedic practices like tongue scraping, maybe cold shower or self-massage, these kind of things, oil pulling. These are all potential practices that you may be drawn to and sort of renovating, updating your daily routine, including where you work, how you work. Maybe you work from home or at an office and you want to adjust that in some way. And if you have any small animals, spending more time with them, or if you don't have any, you may be drawn to get one and bring home a pet and have particularly one from a shelter. 6th house represents underserved populations and animals in shelters in particular, small animals in particular. So you may be drawn to that. And there's a risk of health-related concerns or work-related stress. Extra important time to prioritize your health. There's a tendency to confront unresolved issues related to work and health, and potential for difficulties in maintaining balance in your daily routines. So you may have an ideal schedule. It's good to think about that, to plan that out, and just pull out a calendar or look at your whole week. What do you want to be spending your time on? And there may be some ups and downs with that over the next couple weeks, but you might settle into a new phase over the next 6 months of how you want your daily life to look, where you're spending your time, how much work, how much play, how much time for food and exercise and all the things that are important to you. Sagittarius, rising and moon. This eclipse is happening over your 5th house for Sagittarius, rising and moon. This brings an enhanced creativity to your life, where you may feel like more inspired to explore creative projects, more romance in your life, more inspired to go on dates and do creative date adventures. There's more opportunity for self-expression here. Overall, this is quite favorable. This is your 5th house of luck and past life good karma, which is quite an auspicious place for Sagittarius risings and moons, where whenever there's a transit here, it's an opportunity to find new levels of self-expression, new levels of creativity, lots of opportunities for personal growth and creative expression. This may be favorable for rekindling your passion in your relationship, for picking up hobbies again that you really love, and just expressing yourself in your love life. And you may, if you have kids, you may find yourself wanting to be more playful and creative with your kids, more time with them. If you don't have kids, you may start thinking about it. Maybe something that gets ignited for you, that you have a desire for kids. Or spending more time maybe with cousins or nephews or nieces or kids in your life. 5th house represents children, as well as any sort of creative expression. There's a risk for creative blocks or frustration here, especially around the day of the eclipse. You may feel creatively blocked and a little bit in the negative side of this, but that will pass pretty quickly, and overall this will bring about new creative expression. There's a tendency to confront issues related to self-expression and children, potential for conflicts or emotional turmoil in romantic relationships, needing to balance yourself and others and your needs and your boundaries around relationships and dates. You may decide to set a specific date night or date nights in your schedule where you have time for romance, and especially if you're married and super busy and have lots of kids, it becomes more of a priority, more a necessity to make it a priority and schedule those things. So this time you may find desire to make that more intentional. And next, a Capricorn ascendant and moon. This brings a focus on your home, the fourth house, family, and your emotional well-being, and making sure you're doing things to unwind, to rest, to recover, to relax for yourself. And especially on the eclipse day, you may feel like you really need to just take a day to rest. But around this next 6-month cycle now, from this portal that we're going through, you may find more of a prioritization of time at home, time to rest and recover, time to nurture yourself, to care for yourself, a more loving, nourishing energy for yourself. Opportunities for resolving family conflicts and issues here. And it's favorable for making positive changes at home and in your emotional well-being. Maybe you make your home a little bit more of a sanctuary, more comfortable, more relaxing, to balance out the work, especially right now, where there's all this energy in the work and the sun and Mars. Maybe a lot going on there. More important to balance it out with the time at home. There's a risk for family disputes and emotional challenges here. And there may be some important family issues to address, specifically with your mom, or if you are a mom, with your children. You may want to confront some unresolved family issues and childhood traumas. So doing some sort of therapy kind of work at this time will be very beneficial if that stuff is coming up, or if you feel like it might be there under the surface. Sometimes it's not always obvious, right? People, sometimes if you've never done therapy, you haven't done a lot of therapeutic kind of work, you might think, oh, my life is pretty good. I don't really want to dig a bunch of stuff up and focus on the negative. But once you address those patterns and you see the patterns playing out from the childhood, which so much always comes back to the childhood and the caregiver relationship, which the fourth house represents these things, then through that you see how it is affecting your daily life. And it is maybe having you ask for what you need at work, or avoid putting yourself out there more and being more honest and authentic and vulnerable because of some pattern from the childhood that is just maybe 3 conversations away from being unearthed and discovered there. And that's often the case with deep internal work and therapeutic work. Now, you don't want to be doing this all day, every day, but maybe once a week. And then through this, you start to uncover these patterns that were just a conversation or 2 away from being conscious. And now they're conscious, and now you can make different choices and feel more freedom of expression, feel more in alignment, more authentic to yourself. So especially for the Capricorn risings and moons, this is a powerful time for doing this kind of deeper childhood, family, home kind of healing work. There can be some changes and disruptions in your living situation as well. You may need to move or change or adjust your home in some way, remodel, renovate the home, or maybe reorganize the home. It depends on other transits too for you, and just where your moon and your moon or rising other sign is. But there's certainly some changes in the home that need to be made during this time. For the Aquarius ascendant and moon, this eclipse is happening over your 3rd house. This brings a focus on communication and expressing yourself, and maybe finding new ways to communicate through writing or speaking or podcasts or blogs or YouTube or social media, or just connecting with friends, maybe having more conversations, more phone calls, more time to hang out. This brings more focus on your siblings. If you have siblings, to spend more time with them. Great for learning any new skills. If you want to pick up some new skills, new hobbies, go back to hobbies, this is a powerful time to do so. You can resolve communication conflicts with more ease at this time. It's great for reevaluating your expression, your communication, and your interactions around your neighborhood, more in-person stuff rather than online stuff, and your connections there. So you may need to reevaluate some of those closer friendships and connections, how you're spending your time, what you're doing, when you're doing your hobbies, making time for your hobbies. There's a lot of activity here around communication, so a lot of important conversations to be had around this eclipse and going forward into the next 6 months. Now, there are risks of misunderstandings or conflicts in communication, and a need to maybe re-communicate and readdress things that you've talked about. So you may feel at times misunderstood, but you can address that and resolve that through having another conversation. There is a tendency to confront unresolved issues with siblings and neighbors, and there may be some old stuff from the past that's coming up and expressing itself through current relationships that may be rooted back in your relationship with your siblings or lack thereof, depending on your childhood, the relationships you did have as a child in early education, grade school, things like this. There is a potential for emotional upheaval in your immediate environment. So, essentially, don't make it worse. Don't provoke this. Don't exasperate these challenges, because there will likely be some intense energy, especially on the day of the eclipse and around that, around your home environment, and maybe some new levels of independence and changes in the home, especially if you're in a relationship, kind of renegotiating your boundaries, your needs around relationship. I know some Aquarius risings going through restructuring and even breakups of relationships at this time. So that kind of stuff can be part of this. It does not have to mean breakups, but certainly some sort of renegotiation. And for Pisces ascendants and moons, this eclipse over your second house brings a focus on your financial situation and your resources, particularly around family, and you may need to adjust those resources, renegotiate them, reapproach how you're spending money or saving money, where the money is coming from, investments, things like this, family assets, inheritances, things like this that need to be addressed, and your relationship with your family overall. There's certainly some change happening to your family dynamic at this time, where you're moving into more autonomy, more independence, and more a sense of your own boundaries and your needs around relationships, family of origin relationships. And now there's opportunities for resolving financial conflicts. So very good for addressing debts and financial disputes. Favorable time for reevaluating your financial goals and your resources. There's a risk of overspending or financial setbacks. There's a tendency to confront unresolved financial issues and self-worth. And you may go through some sort of trials around your sense of value and self-worth, what you offer, where you make money, how you make money, and just kind of reconsidering all of that. And there's potential for conflicts over material possessions and values, particularly with the family. And this is an intense time around the eclipse where you may not want to exasperate or perpetuate any sort of conflict or challenge there. But coming through the other side of this eclipse season, around 11/11, having this sort of new relationship to your assets and your wealth and your family, and a new sense of independence and better boundaries around those things with the family. So that's our look at all of the rising and moon signs for this lunar eclipse happening on Saturday, October 28th, 2023, and affecting you over the next 6 months. You might want to come back to this episode over the next 6 months and listen to and review the email if you're on the Friday forecast email list, and see how this has played out. See how this has changed for you, what has come up, what lessons have you learned. And now we'll talk about the other 4 transits happening this week that are shorter in duration and more about this next couple weeks ahead. So on October 30th, Monday, we have Venus moving into Uttara Phalguni. You can see this on the bottom left side. We'll move to the South Indian chart, so we're not focusing on the ascendant. But Venus is in Leo in Uttara Phalguni, bringing an enhanced focus on love, romance, and affection over this 12-day period from October 30th till early November, around 11/11. This 12 days focus on love, romance, and affection, increased connections and relationships, increased creativity and artistic expression, favorable for social gatherings and harmonious interactions. There's potential for overindulgence and sensual pleasures at this time, a risk of becoming overly self-centered or vain, and there's a tendency to overemphasize appearances and materialism. But this can be very passionate, romantic, powerful time. There's a sign exchange with Sun and Venus happening during this, which brings more the sense of creative expression, more passion, more intensity to this in relationships. Very strong sexual energy, sensual energy, doing things to enjoy the senses, music, art, taste, touch, smells, sounds, all very favorable during this time, but there's the possibility of overindulgence to be aware of. Also on Monday, October 30th, Mercury moves into Vishaka Nakshatra for 9 days. We see there it's in Swati, as I talked about in past episodes. But if I move forward just a couple hours in the day, it goes into Vishaka inside of Libra. This brings an enhanced communication and negotiation skills over this 9 days from October 30th until November 8th. There's an increased determination and drive in achieving goals. Vishaka is a very driven energy. It's favorable for research and problem-solving endeavors, anything you want to learn about or research, particularly around relationships. It's potential for conflicts or power struggles in communication, a risk of becoming overly competitive or ruthless, tendency to push too hard for results leading to stress. So it's a very driven energy, very powerful, but it can become overly attached to a goal or an outcome, and then it's important to practice detachment if that happens. On Wednesday, November 1st, Mars moves into Vishaka. Same nakshatra as that Mercury is, where I just talked about, but now Mars, it's in this powerful, driven energy for 19 days, from November 1st till November 20th, bringing an increased determination and assertiveness and ability to get stuff done, enhanced focus on achieving ambitious goals. Favorable for taking decisive actions, getting stuff done, potential for confrontations and power struggles, a risk of impulsive or aggressive behavior, tendency to push too hard leading to conflicts. So very good at focusing on goal setting and getting stuff done, being driven, being focused, but not being so focused on the outcome that it makes you do things that are harmful. On November 2nd, Venus moving into Virgo, we see here in the bottom right. This brings an enhanced attention to detail and appreciation of aesthetics, increased focus on practical and useful aspects of love and relationships. Very practical energy, like what makes sense in relationship? What's the smart thing to do? What's the practical thing to do? Favorable for organized and meticulous expressions of love, affection, beauty, and art, where you may do something very creative and thoughtful for your partner, but there's a potential to be overly critical and a tendency to be cynical in relationships that can come up where you overanalyze yourself and others, and that Venus in Virgo is considered debilitated because it brings the energy of love and passion and desire into practicality. And most desires are not always practical. So this can create some conflicts here where you feel like your partner is being irrational or impractical or you're judging them. Let it pass. 27 days, basically all of November, just be really forgiving, kind, compassionate, caring. Don't overthink it. It's a good time for doing things like learning new techniques, new practical ways of expressing love. Maybe reading a book on love and relationships without getting too heady about it. Maybe learning new dance techniques or artistic expression or painting techniques or drawing or musical skills. These things that are sort of technical and artistic and desire-based. And that will bring out the more positive, spontaneous, and fun and beautiful expression of this. But just if you're focusing on flaws and problems with someone else, just stop, just take a break, step back, look in the mirror, be kind to yourself, be kind to them, and it will pass. Just a month here, and then Venus will go into its own sign of Libra next month, much more favorable. December overall is a much more positive month, and we'll talk about that next time on the podcast, looking at all the transits for December, all the major ones, including the shift of the nodes of Rahu and Ketu. A big 18-month cycle is ending next month, and a new 18-month cycle is beginning. And hopefully this gave you some perspective on what's going on this week with the lunar eclipse. Again, just a quick review. So on October 28th, the lunar eclipse and full moon in Ashwini in Aries. The last time they'll have an eclipse in Aries until 2030. So now 2023 is a powerful time for beginning new things in Ashwini, for healing, opportunities for new beginnings, healing, a fresh start, and new adventure and exploration. There is a potential for impulsivity or impatience here to watch out for. Overall, quite a powerful, positive new beginning. And for all the ascendants and moons, I went through each of your interpretations. And then we have on Monday, October 30th, Venus in Uttara Falguni, great for romance and love. Also on October 30th, Mercury in Vishaka, great for intelligence around your business and your goal setting and your problem solving. And then Mars in Vishaka on November 1st, great for getting stuff done, being more determined and focused on your goals. And then on Thursday, November 2nd, Venus in Virgo for a month, great attention to detail in relationships and aesthetics, great editing ability, great organizing ability. Just be careful not to be overly critical of your partner. So that's our look at this week. And again, if you want these free weekly horoscopes every Friday, the Friday forecast sent to your inbox, go to quietmindastrology.com. There are very limited spaces for readings in 2023 remaining. I will have a special offer around Black Friday and on Mindful New Year on 12/12/23. That's the next big event coming up, December 12th. 2023, Mindful New Year, the 6th annual event to plan your year in a day in sync with astrology. So that will be coming up in just a few weeks, not too far away. So stay tuned for that. If you want to work with me more, that's the best thing coming up soon, because there might not be any more spaces for readings by the time you check this out, but you can check at quietmindastrology.com if you want to book a one-to-one reading before the end of the year. There may be some space still for that. So thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the podcast, please take a moment to leave a review in Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. Share it with a friend who might be interested. It's always more fun to talk about astrology with friends, and you can look at each other's charts and your signs and compare things and see how things are playing out. It gives so much perspective and insight to everything. We do that a lot in the mentorship program. I offer lots of connection and discussion about how things are affecting us as a group and individually. It gives us a lot of perspective and research notes to better understand things when they happen for us. So thank you for listening. Look forward to sharing more with you next time on the monthly horoscope coming up tomorrow on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.